Like I said, a friend, all it is in the conscious field here, how we think of things is a little bit misconstrued. We hold so tightly to things, that's why we see things not for how they are. But as you let a lot of things go, a lot of things come into your consciousness that you weren't allowing because of the belief systems upon certain things. It's like an archetypal structure to make you have a belief for this and that, but this and that is deeper than just that belief of what you think of it as. Because of it, when we think of the conscious field of every living thing, now if we felt that every living thing and understood what that was going through, we could judge it upon of knowing that then, to say what that is. And when we do, that's on deeper levels of the experiences we have in tune with what it is. So, like when you're not, say, around somebody, you're still their friend, right? It's still good, but through the experiences of what happens to grow the friendship, it determines of what you do with it. And not everybody's going to have the time all the time to do that. It's this experience, but throughout time in general, to remember certain aspects and traits of what you did experience, it rolls into, say, the function of now that you could leave off from where you started from. In them good things that you say were missing inside of yourself, that you felt like something was missing or stuff like that, it's all valid inside your own consciousness of what it's trying to tap back into, about to observe from real reality. That's why people have these emotional upsurges and stuff like this, say on Dr. Phil and other things. Them are just people going through certain things that are caused and affected by real reality of what the energetic structure comes from. So if something else is suffering, and say you're in the midst of that suffering, of course, you're going to pick up on that or be influenced by it in a sort of way. So then that's the real function of this life, of how interconnected it is, that we disassociate from even knowing that we already are in that. But the fact of being super conscious of it to put the function back into itself here, rather than up here. Because it being up here, not released out here, the function can't see itself. Like, we can see birds in nature as a function that it sees itself as, and we can see it in it. It brings us joy as well because of the real function that it lives with. Now, mankind's real function that it lives with, it experiences both sides of the fact, but that side of the fact that it doesn't want, it gives power to. Stepping outside of the fact, be inside of the fact of this world that we're living in now, with everything in it, on the base, just them bases, will grow the internal function of, just say, them day-to-day experiences of a real life, of the actual, the being in itself that has that unique trait to it, that does what it does, that makes that cause and effect of an experience to be here, as well as that we know that we are souls. We know that we incarnated as into this experience to be experienced as a trait of it, but to be fully immersed in, when it goes into it too, merges with the conscious field. And that's why people cry and stuff like this sometimes when they're at birth, because you're literally becoming what you go into. So if you're a bee, what bees are already communicating with and everything, you're on the conscious field, you can go and naturally do that from its function of itself, like we are to ourselves. But when you integrate with what it is, you're more in the scope of all the full life, so you're more comfortable with the life that you're in. Because not a lot of people, say, in the world are, say, fully 100% comfortable with being here on Earth, or vice versa. So see, all these aspects I'm rolling upon, but there were so many other little insights I got that I need to, like, have a journal with me so I can just jot it down. Because not all the time I'm going to have the space on my phone, or, you know what I mean? So then that way I can just do that. Plus, time away from that screen is better, you know what I mean? Because you feel better, you feel more alive, your eyes start to readapt natural function of itself. And I noticed that during the summer of last year that my eyes had tremendous changes in the reaction time and the intensity of realness that you tap into. Because sometimes when you get on a different portion of itself, things will look less real than they actually are, and your dream world will look more real. Or say, less in fact. I have dreams that are less than the experiences I have in this vessel, and then sometimes more. These are states of the mind of the experience, and the true fact of it is that we can't deny, outside of either religion or in religion, the fact of what we experience or what goes on. How we look at that, we could look at it a million ways, right? But ultimately, it's a matter of fact of these happenings are happening, right? And these occurrences that make up our experience are the real occurrences inside of what we observe. If we weren't that observer to observe it, we wouldn't be able to have these experiences on the higher level of what we're connected to and what we are. And that's why that you got to put something first above yourself in order to experience that of what it is. Because what it is loves to keep that going of what it is. Then when you really put your soul out to what you truly intended to do, because everybody has that fullness and givingness inside of themselves to do so, and that they feel the balance of both worlds when they're in giving and receiving, because the fact of you can't have one without the other, and other things, and then the flow of it's good, and it has no mystery to it. It's more of a let's play and create more experiences, because I've already remembered all these other ones to realize the function of itself, which we live in and create day to day. And it's always amazing because new things happen. It's never the old same game you're playing here. This is real life, and it's always becoming more inside of itself. See, when we observe that video game, when we play it, even though that it's ourselves experiencing that, so then we get that out of it, that video game doesn't get anything out of it, because it's not that real experience that we have on real life to experience. So when we play that game, we might think of the same patterns like we do on here on Earth, but certain days are different with the energetic structure. So what we experience and what we observe feels different, affects differently, rolls out differently. There's so many variosities between what we see physically. So the energetic structure of what happens internally of our emotions, it happens very vastly on these levels that I notice every day of an aspect, say, I go over in different periods of the year that were a cycle of itself, but still not the same in that same day of what occurred. But you see that, and you see that it is on a cycle of itself, but at the same time, you can see that it's because of what we are that we created from to get that back of the cycle which was created. That we have some influence, not all influence, but we influence it. Like all life influences us. Like that bee over there. And when I actually be in a tree where there's a bunch of flowers and everything, and the bees are going crazy, you know what I mean? That vibration, it heals me, and it literally puts me in a really good state. And when I'm singing like that and getting to the higher states myself, it puts me in a really good state real calm. Now, each incarnation, they can be a soul of some degree that they can do, say what I'm doing and more, or in a degree on a soul where if they're outside of that physical incarnation in the body, which they are, in different circumstances of planes in reality, but it's on the scale that in itself of what they can do in a physical vessel is not the vastness of what they're actually capable of doing, say, outside of that vessel. Then they influence a lot more, but what they do is important for the essence in the physical plane, because this is our physical experience within these worlds need to have the architectural energies with it too as well. So butterflies, all that, they're a short incarnation of itself, but it's pure. It's from the form of itself through generations upon in the making. Every souls jump into the game, they influence the game, but when they're out of it, they take with of what it's all energetically corresponding to, But then butterflies, when they incarnate, they're in the consciousness of what was created from that butterflies that created upon itself, right? So when it merges with that, it plays its role, and it's a part of that big sequence of itself to be experienced. And it's when you look at it like that, it's way more in depth of itself. And I can see its energetic structure, and they're all on that same vibe. And creating its experience as it's moving on, it does change as things amp up through them degrees, and you can see it, and it always had this, and always will be as powerful. But to notice all the aspects within it, But the thing is what we do and what we experience, it will always be that occurring aspects upon itself that evolves itself into its state where it resides in all the time, though. Because before we were there, we were here, but when we were here, we had all the energy with us and all the, the good things that carried us on to there. And to there, even if it was different and say a little bit better than there, it didn't make it any less of the power which it had. So that's why that time, and it, doesn't exist, and it's kind of, that is true in a way, but in a big sort of way, that it's outside of the fact of that which we look at. Like when we go through timelines and different things, there could be many timelines within something that is not yet experienced that you're constantly experiencing. So maybe it's not even the same exact of what you thought in certain similar timelines, but it branches out from the fact of that new timeline that you're in, that you did experience through the now. So every now that is experienced through the time period is the true time period that it was experienced in. So you're not relaying a past experience in a way, because you're constantly co-creating a new one. So when you have that deja vu, you're noticing that same pattern, but it's not, you're in a new pattern because you noticed it, let alone. But you're noticing other traits which is real through the time periods. So I hope you got all that. Remember to watch this video as many times to understand what I just said. When I look back at this, off the bat, I recognize everything. It just clicks. It's this constant cycle inside my brain that realizes the fact. It doesn't take a rule or anything that will distract you from the natural process. You got to give into it. Whatever frees yourself to let go to begin with, will let that genetic process to begin with inside of yourself to know fully, and to trust yourself, and that all the peace and all the aspects inside yourself to be in, it's there. And the thing is that our energy and what we do in timelines affects us. So we got to know that doing the right things that make us happier, we follow that more and put that on a scale more, we'll end up being that in itself more. And it just needs, a little time to be in what it is more, to give that cycle of itself more to it. Then we be around each other way more on an often basis to create more of itself, to ramp that up in itself, because that's what the world was lacking for a period of time. And in the scale of the things of what we were, that's why it was so painful, because we know we're not originating from that space to begin with, because the space originated comes from the heart, and that is the truth of it, of the whole essence of our energetics, of what we are to begin with, the soul, of all the many things that we go into throughout life. So yeah, now that was a little bit more explained towards the end. I hope, like I said, you can go back and watch it. And man, I gotta get some water. It's getting really warm. Two birds flying. I see two of everything together. People, birds, everything. Why me? Right? I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's just a matter of time before I get in that cycle of things. And it's an aspect of me that was always there, that existed before, And the thing is that not all people say, well, know it in this incarnation. And if they do, that's really good. And they're creating more aspects of themselves, right? And it's never outside of the fact that you're saying, some people that say don't know certain things. It's not that they're dumb. Some people say, okay, you're dumb for not knowing something. But physically not being aware of, say, a movie that you never were told, that's not being dumb. You just weren't acknowledged. Somebody didn't tell you. It's simple as that. It's just like this world. What it doesn't tell you, once you acknowledge it, didn't mean you're dumb. It's just that if it was away from your awareness, it's not your fault. Because if it's in your awareness, you are aware of it, then you become also smarter, but it's not. It's just what you reside in and what you hold is the smartness of what you hold. You will know things other people don't know about. So then that makes them any less dumb or smarter than the other. So we got to know that we merge and grow this. We become more embraced in every life of what it is. That's why nature, nothing's from itself, right? Mankind, there is a little bit things from itself because it can't fully, because it was like when I was young, but it segregated. You know what they did through schools? It was that in itself to try to shut down the natural essence, but the essence is always there to be thriving in. There is no shutting that down, because if you do, then that's totally, we're outside of this fact of mankind. Then we would rather be in the fact of everything else. We wouldn't die. We'd just change or go into something of that former nature of itself. So this function of itself is good, and it still has a really good side of it, but there's pain within all functions of itself in some degrees, but all the others are way more percentile above. When you reach a percentile below, that's where you go. So that's why there was so much pain incarnate back in the physical form, based off of karma, and based off of certain timelines and different parallel realities that we're into, that we, it's only saying what we need to know really for this incarnation. But when we're outside of the fact and we get back into it, we're aware of everything at once, right? You know what I mean? That's why we're not putting everything at once here now, because there's certain strategic things that we do as this physical experience to begin with. That's why there's certain traits that are not always reconciled first. So